Grandfather, this is Hogswatch. It's supposed to be jolly, with mistletoe and holly, and other things, ending in ollie. It's a time when people are meant to feel good about things and eat until they explode. A time when they want to see all their relatives.
Hi, I'm Ben, and welcome to my book corner. As we're on the run up to Christmas here in the UK, I thought we'd take a look at a Christmas themed book, which is a special treat for me personally because this is a book that really got me into reading when I was a teenager. That book is The Hogfather, written by Terry Pratchett, that was released back in 1996 and is the 20th book chronologically in the Discworld series. As normal, we shall take a look at the story, the characters, the world building, the style of writing, and finally I'll end on my own thoughts on the book, which, spoiler alert, are very positive. So, with all that out of the way, let's just jump straight in. This is a story about belief and about what it means to be human. The basic beats of this story begin when the auditors of reality, a group of cosmic shades, for want of a better word, who hate life in general, decide that as a point of housekeeping, the Hogfather needs to cease to be. To that end, they employ the Assassin's Guild of Ankh-Morpork to do this task, and more specifically Jonathan Teyatami, an assassin who even other assassins feel uneasy around. In an attempt to keep belief in the Hogfather alive, the death of the Discworld literally takes up the reins and the sleigh, parading around as the Hogfather to try and keep belief going. However, when he visits his granddaughter Susan to drop the presents off for the kids there, she becomes suspicious. A 7-foot-tall skeleton dressed up as Santa would have that effect on you, however, and gets involved in an attempt to figure out what's really going on. From this point forward, events from the ridiculous to the sublime ensue. You get to meet the bogeyman, meet the criminal underworld, visit the Tooth Fairy, go to the home of the Hogfather, and spend some time with the great academics, the wizards at the Unseen University. You also get to find out what happens when there's spare belief in a magical world, leading to the creation of new gods, goblins, and fairies. This book is like no other Christmas book I have ever read. It is also a satire, as all the Discworld books are, but it is at no point mean-spirited. However, the commercialisation of the holidays, certain institutions and beliefs, and how much belief changes over the years are all touched on lightly in here. It's a really good story, really original, full marks here. First off, the elephant in the room. If you're reading this book as a standalone, you will still get really good world building here. However, I do have to say early on, if you have read any of the previous Discworld books, that actually enhances this, as you would expect. It's a long running series, this is the 20th book. There are places in here, most notably the Wizards University, where you've been before and there's stuff that you can sort of glean. It affects characters more than the actual world itself, but it's an important point to mention here. That being said, it is excellent world building. What Pratchett does not do is focus too much on the visuals of the world, although the descriptions there are solid at worst. What he really goes in on is how the world feels, and it really does help give the setting a great deal of character. All the way through the book, you get a sense of immersion and what it would be like to actually exist in this world. The other thing that is really strong with the world building here is how belief as a force interacts with the world. You see this as the Hogfather is a focus of belief, and how his disappearance creates this void and leaves lots of belief hanging around, and how easy it is for things to then spring forth from that. The final point of world building that's really important here is the establishment of setting rules. This is quite often a thing you see in Magic, but in this place, it more focuses on the rules for what, for want of a better word, the gods or the special creatures like death can and cannot do, because they are not all powerful. They do have limits, and those limits are set and unbreakable, but there are ways around them. Very solid world building. Not really got much more to say past that. So, first off, just like in world building, if you've read any previous Pratchett books, you will get more out of this due to the fact there are a number of characters like Death and the Wizard and Susan that are reappearing after being in previous books. That being said, there is some decent characterisation here, but rereading this actually reminded me of something that I'd forgotten, and that is characterisation versus personality. Quite often in some of my previous reviews where you've got quite a big ensemble cast, I have touched on the fact that they have very little characterisation and they have a one-note personality, and that's quite often dragged the books down. There are a lot of characters in this book that you spend time with, and as a result the actual characterisation is not particularly deep. However, everyone oozes character, or at least all the main cast. There are some characters in here that feel like caricatures, but that is actually by design. To give you a direct example of that, you have a shopkeeper at one point who gets really frustrated because the Hogfather is giving presents away, and that's not what shops are for, and he's very much written almost like a meme of how a greedy shopkeeper would act. But again, it's in service to make a point, and that touches on the satire which is in this story. But everybody just oozes personality. The way their fears are investigated and what's driving them and their ambitions and why they're doing what they're doing is all really well done, and this is absolutely some top-notch personality work, if not necessarily character work, just because of the huge amounts of cast at play. So again, like in the other sections, there's a bit of an elephant in the room with this one. Pratchett does not write in chapters in almost any of the Discworld books. I know some of the more young adult focused ones he does, but in general, chapters I think he doesn't do. And this book is no different in that regard. So if you're the sort of person who is used to chapters, you might find that a little bit off-putting at first. It's even worse if you're the sort of person like me who naturally stops at a chapter's end, because there isn't one. There are natural stop points, but it's not as if you have like text and then half a page missing and then more text begins. That being said, all that means is you'll read the book faster and then pick up another one, which is never a bad thing, and these books are well worth reading, all of them anyway. What really sets him apart though is his use of satire and his use of language. As mentioned in the slide just before this, Pratchett had a very clear view on how satire should be done, and it shines through with a gentle probing at various different aspects of modern society, tradition, retail, commercialisation, belief, so on and so forth. And the language that he employs for this is often best described as flourishy and flowery. Everything that he writes has such personality, and it really is a joy to read, which is why I enjoy these books so much, because what really makes these books is the style of writing more than anything else. The characters are great, the world building is awesome, the stories are good, but the way it's presented is what really elevates these books to greatness in my mind, and Hogfather is no exception to that. So, what are my final thoughts on this book? As already mentioned, I have a natural bias to this. It did help drive me in the direction of reading towards the Discworld and towards fantasy in general. This is an original story with characters that show a great deal of personality, which is lacking in a lot of books. Now, this is easily probably my second best book that I've read this year. For those reasons, I will give this a 4 stars out of 5. However, what I will add is that if you're new to the Discworld, this is not a great starting point for you. There are better Pratchett books to onboard with out there, and in fact there's better Pratchett books overall. This is probably in the top half, but only just. But it's still an excellent book in its own right. However, that's my thoughts on the Hogfather. I'd love to know yours. If you let me know in the comments below what you think. Have you read this book? Did you enjoy it? Where does it rank for you in the Discworld series? Also, if there's any Discworld books you'd like me specifically to read, let me know. And I will catch you all next time.